be on with you guys and have fun.
All right.
May the best team win.
Yeah, and our sign language interpreter is Lucy Maura. And welcome to this edition of The Living Legends. My name is Daniel Wahome, and today we speak football, knowing very well that it is the World Cup weekend, World Cup iko KBC. We're going to be speaking to a man who's been an administrator, he's been a coach, he's been a player, and something that is not known much about him is that he's also a man of the sciences. We're talking about football coach, former player, he's been team manager of the Harambee Stars, and also an administrator, Patrick Naggi, who's also going to be part of our analysis team during the World Cup. Thank you very much, Bwana Naggi.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. And story being biographical, let's start with, your early life and education.
Well, early life, born in the 50s, actually 1950 in Kandara, Muranga. We came to Nairobi with our old man, the late Jason Naggi, in 1955. And from 1957, I attended St. Paul's Primary School in Botella. And subsequently, after the KCPE, I went to Starehe Boys and was there from 1966 to 1969. Then in those days, actually getting to Form 4 was the apex of things, and you just want to quit and go and do the job. So I was one of the victims. So I moved from Starehe, joined a company that was working on tea, and we did tea and coffee analysis. That was 1970. Now, sooner than that, in 1970 itself, I had now matured into football, but earlier on we had played football in Hamza, a team called the Hamza Heroes. That was a youth team. Then we moved in, all of us as a group, to a team called the Nabongo Sharpshooters, which was in the Premier Division, the team that never actually lost to Gor Mahia in the 70s. Yeah, that was known. Then from there, we moved to Black Mamba. We were moving about 3 or 4 or 5 of us with the late Mahmoud. Joined Black Mamba, played for Black Mamba for 2 years. Then moved from Black Mambas. We formed our own team, which was Gema United. Gema then went on and played in the Premier League until 1970. I played until 1973, when I was spotted by Kenya Breweries, and I was recruited into Kenya Breweries Football Club. So,
and actually, let me talk just about your football, because there is a story people do not know. You were the youth player of the year in Kenya in 1968.
Yeah, almost forgot. Yeah, we also had youth programs out there in those early days, and by good luck, we had teams from, Black Mamba was one of them. We had teams from Kibera, the Spurs, and you had, Spurs were from Misili, and you have teams from Kibera and other areas, Bahati, Jericho, Botella, and all those things. And we were playing youth programs, and incidentally, I was nominated the Player of the Year in 1968 at tender age of about 17 or thereabout. And that's where my stars started maybe shining a wee bit about football. Now, prior to joining Breweries, and I played for Breweries from 1974 to 1979. And so in my lifespan in football is about 10 years, that from 1970 to almost 1980.
Well, let's talk about Kenya Breweries, because at that one of the things that's well known about Kenya Breweries was, there was that game where playing continental football, and there was a case of Ismailia. What exactly happened such that, Breweries moved past Ismailia because Ismailia failed to play in that game?
Yeah, that was in the African Cup, and Ismailia, I think we went to Egypt, and then Ismailia somehow had their own problems, and they refused to continue, with their game plan, and we were given the okay. But before then, there were the times when Breweries in itself was the troubleshooter between Gor Mahia and AFC. If you remember those days, football was mainly tribal. And there was teams like Luo Union, which later on became Gor Mahia. You had
Reunion.
Yes. Then you had the AFC Leopards, who called themselves the Wabaluya Football Club. Then you have teams like, Andimi, all those. But besides that, also in those early days, we had what you call commercial league, and that kept the teams playing in the estates. So as until that time, I joined Breweries, played for Breweries for those years. Then around 1982, I was now after quitting football. Actually, what the story about my quitting football was as a result of whatever took place, because in 1976, if you remember, Luo Union was a very strong team.
Yes.
And they had their chairman, the late Dan Owino, and Matiba was now the chairman of FKF in 1976. And I think somehow Luo Union never went to represent Kenya on away match in Algeria, which caused a lot of aggravation between Matiba, then the late Matiba, and Dan Owino. And as a result, Breweries won the league in 1979, in short. But other than us being sent to play to represent Kenya in the African Championship, Dan Owino had now moved in to be the chairman of KFF. And he said, okay, that's what you did to my team in 1976. So Breweries, you're not going anywhere. Actually, it caught us very unawares because we were already in camp in Mombasa, in some of those late Matiba's hotels, and only to be told that, sorry, your name did not go, and you did not register for CAF, and neither did you register for Eastern Central Africa Club Championship, which was taking place in Somali, 1980. And quietly, the late told the AFC Leopards, just keep training because it is you who are going to go to Somalia. So eventually we never went to Somalia. They said we have lost all our documents, travel documents. So we stayed home. Leopards went, they won, the cup came back, and in tandem to that, they also disqualified Breweries for 1 year. Actually, the club Breweries never played for 1 year. That is 1980. It was banned. It was banned by the then chairman. And by the time you were coming back now, 1981, 82, as you said, me and Sciences, I was working as a lab technician, and already, working in a place like Breweries, in the laboratories, free beers all the time. So by the time the league came back, I had already developed a pot. So I quit football.
Well, actually, because I want to come in here and talk about science, your kind of science and football, because you used to analyze, perishable goods and everything. How did you change your, the way you think and take a look at football?
No, it's a question of looking at it upside down. And not just looking at it plainly, but looking beyond there. For example, if a winger is playing here on the left, you are trained not to really look at him, but the man off the ball. Like I was talking about a match in 2014 about Brazil and Netherlands. And for me, that's the best goal I've ever seen, because I think a midfielder from Netherlands came to the left flag of the center field and hit a long banana shot. It's called banana because the pass is called a banana because it's carved like a banana. He hit it and it went between the goalkeeper and the striker. The striker was now Van Basten. And Van Basten started his run.
Van Persie. Oh, that was the opening game, Spain versus the Netherlands, where he headed in.
Right. That famous. That head is nothing more I've seen more than that. Because he carved this ball, and by the time the ball is traveling, the goalkeeper tried to move out. He realized he was going to go too deep into the field and retreated back to his goal, to his goal mouth. And this time when Percy came in, and you can imagine that kind of timing, where the ball is in the air and you are also running and you are aiming there and the ball hasn't reached there. And by the time he got there, the goalkeeper tried to come out and he flicked the ball. He headed here, flicked it up such that it took a depth and the goalkeeper could not reach it and the ball went in. I mean, such memorable things, the wonders of football. Anyway, so me and my football, then after that immediately I said I'm going to go to coaching.
Yeah, coaching.
Administration first. I was voted the team manager in 1986.
86.
86, yeah, 1986. So I became the team manager of Breweries Football Club and we played. And that year, that is the time we changed the image of Breweries, because for a long time, Breweries has been the between, the grinding stone, because you had the AFC Leopards who are Luyas, you had Luo Union or Nani who are Luos, and the only team that only gave them problem was Breweries. But Breweries had the best players, and we were well taken care of. So all the time we would always beat them. And until 1986, then we did thorough recruitment. After moving in, after being a player myself and knowing what it takes to be a player in Breweries those days, I decided to cut a thin line on tribalism in the team. And immediately I got in, I said, whenever we went in the bus traveling to Mombasa, the Luyas would be here speaking in Luya, and the Luos would be here speaking in Luo, and then
the rest of the gang,
Simon Gundi, Magogo Mohamed, Binzi Mwakolo, Wanao Wakina Ojiambo, we would now be speaking in Swahili. So first thing I did, I said, no more vernacular in the bus. As we go, if we are going to make jokes or do anything, all of us have to share it and laugh. So I said, no tribalism, nothing. And everywhere I don't want to hear, in the field of play, language. So we started killing off. And that's what turned Breweries to be what it was. And what it is until today. That's the pride about Breweries. Until now, Breweries has always kept itself away from those kind of groupings. So come in 1986, we changed the pattern of play. And I realized it's time we changed the scenario. And that year we went in for youth, what you call a selection or recruitment. And I got young players like the George Kimolo, if you remember him. Tiny pocket kind of a player, but very effective. The late Boniface Odor, Douglas Mutua, Dino Kitavi, all that group, Joseph Kibera, we picked in and mixed up all the tribes. And I made sure that I had whatever I had. And actually, not that I'm a tribalist, but if I had a player here who can give me 60%, and he's not one of either the Luos or the Luyas, I would pick him up. Reason is because the majority of players, of course, came from the two tribes.
Yes.
And the more you brought them in, the more you added was soup for you. So what I would do is look at the player, of course, education level, and then education, where they live, the mentality, and etc. And we came up with a very strong team. That team of 87. Actually, at one time, we were leading by 10 goals. No, 10 points.
10 points.
Ahead of Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards. And the league was coming to an end. And you know what happened? Now, it was the work of the referees to make sure that we are held on.
Now, let me talk about also around that period, 88, 1992. You were team manager of the Harambee Stars when they went for the AFCON in Algeria. But there is a story about this squad that qualified for 3 Africa Cup of Nations. There was no group phase qualification. It was knockout from start to finish.
Yeah.
But and there tends to be a connection with something that happened in 1974, the Olympic Youth Centers. What was the development process then that made Kenya such a formidable force?
Warner's goal is the one who made Kenya what it was in the 80s. Actually, if you ask me, he's the best Kenyan coach we've ever had, because he came in 1974, started youth programs, and I was part of that youth program, because in 1974, I was picked and played for Kenya in the youth Sekafa Championship in 1974 in Kampala, Uganda. So 74's goal came and started what you call Olympic Youth Centers. These were regional centers that were formulated for football development across the country. So what happened, he had there was youth center in Nairobi, all the provinces, Nairobi, Coast, Western, etc., etc. And it was put in a way that every center had its own administrative people and technical people. For example, in technical people in Coast, we had Mohammed Heri. In Rift Valley, we had the late Sam Nyongesa. In Western, we had Chris Makoha, the late. Then I think we had, who else? Anyway, we had those people who took care of those centers, and they made sure that football was being played, the under 15, under 17, and under 20. So we are saying by the time this goal came in 1974, by the time in 6 years' time, and these players were about 17, 15, 18, they were now 20s, 21, 22s. And that's what made Kenya what it was in the 80s. As you remember, in 1980, Kenya won Eastern Central Africa 3 years in a row, 80, yes. 81, 82, under Marshal Mulwa.
Yes.
But Marshal Mulwa got these players after Bena's goal has done all the preparation and developed. That's the development stage. Developed all the players, and that's how Kenya was. Very strong, very robust, and very athletic. If you look again in the 80s, I push you back to breweries. No, Gor Mahia first. 1987, Gor Mahia won the Mandela Cup, that continental trophy, thanks to the group of Bernard's goal and his youth programs. Then again, you have like breweries. We went to Eastern Central Africa Club Championship in 1988 in Sudan, and we won, and we scored 13 goals against 0, a record that had never been broken unto this day.
Clean sheets.
13-0. That was the story I was telling you about 1980, when Brewery was leading by 10 points, and they were fixed by the local referees not to go there. So by the time we left Kenya to go to Sudan, we were in the 4th position. Gor Mahia was the defending champion of Mandela Cup.
Yes.
Then AFC Leopards was number 2, so it took number 1 club championship. Then you had Shabana, which was legend in number 3, and we were supposedly to be number 4. So Nani went to Cup Winner Cup, etc. So by the time we got to Sudan and we played the game, do you know, these people said this is not one team.
They thought
this
it was...
is a country. This is Gor Mahia, Luo Union, because they never knew breweries combine.
Wow. So, and the story then is here for a country like Kenya, to get to start performing properly. What is required of the country in terms of development? What kind of structure, and how long should we wait?
The answer is youth, 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 youth. Once you fail the youth, you failed everything, because like right now, we have no youth programs at all. I mean, boys playing football out there on their own and doing whatever they can, poor little children, you can't blame them. They have the passion and love for the game, but there's nobody to lead them. And this is what I personally, or as a tactician, I blame the government and blame the federation, because all this problem comes in as a result of not doing things the proper way. For example, right now we are supposed to be having 2 referees in the World Cup. They are not there. Why? Because of politics. We are banned already. We can't go anywhere. FIFA ranking, we must be maybe number 150. All right? Why? Because we don't play football, because of these political things. And I would really urge people who are in charge of football to go around. Do not single source these positions. Don't take these things in terms of brotherliness. This is my brother, let him come in here, what have you, nepotism, etc. Get the correct people. Let's have the correct structures going on. Like if I were to tell you another story is about development, that is coaching. I am a CAF level A, trainer of trainers.
Yes.
Not just a coach. I train the level A's coaches in Africa. That's what I've been doing, right? But now Kenya in itself does not have regimental drilling system to bring up coaches. Because like right now in 2014, that time I was in Yanga, I was also the technical director of Yanga in Tanzania, 2013 to 2015. Yanga of Tanzania.
Team ya wananchi.
Team ya wananchi. And I can tell you that Kenya had a very funny kind of development of football, because in 2014 they got coaches in the country, some of whom won level C, and asked for money. Each coach was to pay 100,000 shillings, paid 100,000 shillings, right? So that is taken into the course. Okay? Now, this level A itself takes 30 days to complete. 30 days. But what you do with 30 days is you break them down into sequences, okay? 10 days, 10 days, 10 days, and then all is over. But do you know Kenya took 5 days? They trained for 5 days, and everybody was given CAF level A.
Patrick Naggi, he's a coach, and as we wind up this interview, whenever he's done analysis, he always has an analogy, and this one is based on a snake. Tell us that as your parting shot.
Well, I was there a bit about the snake, and it's a story whereby
let's make it brief. A young snake
and an old bites you. If you are bitten by a young snake, you are very unlucky, because the snake puts all the venom at a go without knowing there will be another opponent tomorrow. But an older snake will just give a quarter of a dose, knowing tomorrow there will be another opponent. So that's the difference between the young snake, venom, and the old snake.
Well, thank you very much. He's a CAF. He's a trainer of trainers at the Confederation of African Football. He's managed the Harambee Stars. He has been in administration of football, and he's also a man of the sciences. The 1968 Youth Player of the Year, Patrick Naggi, has joined us on The Living Legends, and it was a pleasure hosting him. And remember, you can get to watch him on KBC Channel 1 as he breaks down the FIFA World Cup matches. World Cup, Iko KBC. My name is Daniel Wahome.